Imagine being a kid in elementary school and already wearing hearing aids. Now also imagine growing up, becoming an audiologist, and spending your entire adult career sitting across from patients who waited 20 years to do the thing that you've done since you were a child. So this is the woman who I'm sitting down with today, Dr. Mandy Rounseville-Norgaard. She's worn hearing aids since she was a kid. She's an audiologist with a practice here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. She's been in the field for decades, and she's watched the same pattern play out thousands of times. People know something's off, usually for years. We turn the TV up. Maybe our spouse asks us to repeat ourselves a second or third time. The spouse finally drags them in, and by the time they get tested, the brain has been working overtime to compensate. There's also something that no one is telling women in their 40s and 50s, and that is that perimenopause and menopause is not just about hot flashes and sleep. There are estrogen receptors throughout your inner ear, and when estrogen drops, your hearing changes, and most of us have no idea. Most doctors are not bringing it up, and the gap between the first sign of hearing loss and the day someone finally gets tested is 20 years. So in today's episode, you're going to hear Mandy's own story, the first real signs of hearing loss, what perimenopause and menopause is doing to your ears that no one is talking about, why untreated hearing loss is now one of the top modifiable risks for dementia, and the difference between an over-the-counter hearing aid and a real evaluation. So she's going to bust the biggest myths, including the one where you think you would know if you had hearing loss. Spoiler alert, you might not. And the audiologist wearing hearing aids is on this episode is proof of that. So if you've ever turned the TV up, ask someone to repeat themselves, which I've done that many, many times. I might need to come and see you. Or noticed a ringing that never quite stops, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Health and wellness is confusing. There's a new trend every week. Everyone's got an opinion, and half the time you can't tell what's legit from what's just good marketing. And we get it. We're in it too. Welcome to Dialed In Health. I'm Melissa Goodwin. Every episode, we bring in the people who actually do this work. Providers, practitioners, the experts who see clients and patients every day. We ask the questions you'd ask if you were sitting across from them so you can find the right people, make better decisions, and feel confident about what's out there. Whether it's peptides, gut health, water quality, ADHD, biohacking, or something you've never heard of, we're covering it. So let's get into it. Let's get dialed in.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, it is a lot of stuff. Dr. Mandy, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So you've worn hearing aids since you were a kid. So tell us back about that experience. What was that like?
Well, I don't know any different just because, so I have a twin sister. We were born 6 weeks early. We were in the NICU. The story was, from my audiologist, was our lungs were underdeveloped. So back then they just pumped you full of meds, because they didn't know what your survival rate was. So
Sure.
They're thinking it was gentamicin. And my mom kind of knew something was wrong when I was 2. She was pregnant with my brother at the time. So she called School for the Deaf. And back then the audiologist came to your house. And I honestly don't remember the hearing test or anything.
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, she's got hearing loss. And then they tested my sister. And my sister had hearing loss in one ear, but I had it in both ears. And I don't remember this either, but they came when I was 3 because my mom was having complications with my brother, and they fit my hearing aids at home. And the first thing I did was walk to the refrigerator. Like I somehow heard the humming of the refrigerator and just stood there and stared at it.
Yeah.
That was like the memory my mom tells me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I got glasses and I was legally blind. No one knew, including myself, I didn't know I had a vision problem. And then I got my glasses and I was like, I can read license plates. It was like a whole new world.
Yeah.
And I was in 5th grade, like I was older. So I can only imagine as a little child, like it's like a whole world opens up.
Yeah. Well, and I asked, did I take my first steps up the 1 year mark? Yes. Did I say my first words? I did. But they think if I didn't have my twin sister, I probably never would have done all that stuff on time.
Yeah. That's amazing. So when you were young, and you had hearing aids, did you ever feel different, or did that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us what that was like.
Well, so hearing aids were analog back then.
Okay.
And you had feedback. You had to wear them over your ear. You had to get new molds every few months because you're growing. And you want to play sports, but they don't sit on your ears. I mean, people make fun of you on the playground. I mean, all the things. And so what was available back then is a far cry from what's available now.
Do you treat kids here today? I bet that's such a cool experience.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So how did that shape your decision to become an audiologist? How did you come into this field?
Well, I didn't accept it. It took years to accept it because I always thought it was a reflection of something negative.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I went to college, and my handball coach, so we played handball in college, my sister and I, said, you have got to get a degree. You've got to declare a degree and get on with undergrad. And I'm like, okay, fine. So they had started a communication sciences and disorders degree, and audiology, deaf ed, and speech pathology. And I went into deaf ed. But then as I was getting through it, I started to realize there's more to having this. It's not even a disability anymore. It's just, I call it a gift. Like, this is my gift and I need to share it.
Yeah.
So I took it one step further and just decided to go the audiology route.
How does your experience, do you think, shape the way that you interact with patients?
It's much easier to, when they're explaining to me what's going on with their hearing aids or just how they're experiencing their hearing loss, it's like, yep, I get it. I get it. I know it. I mean, of course, hearing aids aren't perfect. And that's like the biggest conversation I think we have with these patients. We're never going to restore those inner hair cells until science does what science does. But in the meantime, we can try to wear this technology, these hearing aids that are trying to mimic what the hair cells are trying to do and improve our quality of life. People are like, do you remember what it's like not to hear? And I say, I know what it's like when I take them out. When I don't hear, when I put them in, I can't function.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can sit here and nitpick like what we want these hearing aids to do, but if you look at it as a whole, isn't your quality of life much better?
Yeah. And you have a YouTube channel, and some of your highest ratings are the reviews of the hearing aids too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of have a first-hand opportunity to review them and see what you think of them as well as a practitioner and as a wearer.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets muddy in the waters when people are looking online. What's the best hearing aid?
Yeah.
Over the counter, is that really a hearing aid? All the stuff. Because every hearing aid manufacturer has the patient's interest, their best interest. They want to improve your quality of life, and everybody's complaint is, I can't hear when there's background noise and multiple conversations. So the technology that comes out every 6 to 12 months, we're trying to improve that quality in background noise. I still struggle, but I know that if I take my hearing aids out, I would get nothing.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's everybody's goal is to hear better when there's noise and when there's multiple conversations going.
Does your hearing get worse if you don't get hearing aid? I know if for glasses, like my eyes get worse pretty much every year. Is it the same way with your hearing?
I think you just realize how bad it is.
Okay. So
it wasn't that bad.
If you do get hearing aids, does it halt the progression at all? No.
No, and that's where we're going to talk about probably the dementia part.
Sure. Okay.
It's the brain. The brain's your ears channel the sound. Your brain has to interpret what it's getting.
So it's the interpretation piece, not necessarily the hearing. Got it. Okay. So one of the things in the introduction, we talk about how many of us wait 20 years too long. So tell me, what is it like being on both sides? You were a child and you had hearing aids, but you have a lot of people that come in and that wait way too long. Tell me why that happens.
Number one, well, there's two reasons. Probably number one is the stigma. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I don't want people to see the hearing aids. And then it probably boils down to denial.
Yeah.
I'm not really that bad. And then cost. Those are probably your biggest factors.
Well, and you're used to, I kind of joke about it all the time. I'm like, well, maybe I went to too many concerts and I just hit 50. So I probably should get my hearing checked. But I'm always saying like, what? My kids tease me about it all the time. And I joke about I went to many concerts, or I have my Peloton headphones on too high, or when I get really stoked about a ride or something.
Yeah.
But, I guess, what is the age that you should absolutely get it checked?
I think 50s, start in your 50s, because that's when age-related loss starts. You're going to see probably more hearing loss. It's more prevalent in men, but that's just because of the lifestyles that men live, the occupational noise, the recreational noise. They're probably more exposed to noise than women typically are.
Sure. Well, I have a 7-year-old boy who's pretty loud, so I don't know. Maybe some moms might be able to hold their own in
those
that
daycare
department.
workers, I always wonder,
So tell me about Audiology Associates. Have you always been on your own? Did you start this practice by the day you got out of college?
No, I worked so I went to school later in my mid-20s because I kind of had that period of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I finished undergrad, took about 6-7 years off, and then went back to school. And then I went and worked at School for the Deaf in Minnesota for a while.
Okay.
And then I transitioned into private practice, kind of like what I did do here. And then ear, nose, and throat. The VA, worked at our local VA for almost 8 years. And then I opened this in 2018.
Okay. So what made you decide that it's time for you to start your own business?
I felt like my service, and I love our veterans. My husband's a veteran. I could do more outside of the VA. I could still help the veterans, and I could help just people in general that needed hearing aids or struggle with the hearing loss. Because you kind of get, in the VA world, you're kind of limited on what you can do. And I just knew that there was just more for me out there.
What is one of the things that surprises you the most about how people behave around getting their ears checked, getting hearing aids? You've lived with it your whole life, so you've probably just been like,
to me, it's nothing.
Yeah. But for some people, it's a very real thing. So I have someone in my life who is older that definitely, but is very against coming to even get checked.
Yeah.
What is that about?
I just don't think they know there's something wrong. And they just don't want to know it or see it or deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, every day is a different day. We'll get people that come in. You can tell their spouses drug them in. And by the end of the appointment, they're smiling. They're relaxed. They're like, okay, I guess I need hearing aids. I mean, it's just crazy. You can't really read somebody right away until you've taken them back and got to know them.
Yeah. So you said hearing loss usually starts in the 50s. So
age-related loss. Yeah.
It's so fun. Like no one tells you to go get your ears checked, though. It's at least no one has told me that yet until I've started talking with you. Why? We know to get our eyes checked if you're kind of having to squint or something. What are some of the symptoms that might let you know, like, I should maybe get this checked? What might be happening?
Well, you've kind of hit all of them. The asking asking people to repeat, especially when there's background noise or a couple conversations going on, ringing in your ears or noises at tinnitus. You might notice that. You might be more tired at night because maybe, because hearing loss is so slow that you adapt.
Okay.
And so sometimes you might realize, okay, well, I feel like I'm not hearing as well as I did this morning. I feel like I'm struggling. So maybe you're exerting some effort to hear better.
Okay.
So those kind of things are probably more noticeable. But the biggest thing, other people are probably going to tell you before you tell yourself.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned it's a brain interpretation. Tell me more about that. Like, how is our brain having to work overtime when you can't hear? What's happening? So
if the brain can't get the signal, it can't interpret it. It can't hear it. So it's always trying to fill in the gap. So if somebody's having a conversation and you're saying, pass me the chips, and they say ship, what ship? Like those misinformed words, because the brain, it's not hearing it correctly.
Okay.
Because it's not getting the volume or the signal that it needs.
Quick break. This episode is brought to you by Vitality Growth Labs. If you're a health or wellness practice and you're wondering why your phone isn't ringing the way it should be, Vitality Growth Labs builds the systems to fix that. Get found, build trust, fill your calendar. AI authority stacking, videos that connect with your clients, real tools, strategy, and execution that results in real revenue. Visit vitalitygrowthlabs.com or check the provider directory at vitalitygrowthlabs.com/the directory to find a trusted wellness provider near you. All right, back to the show.
We talked a little bit about waiting. So if I wait too long, what is something bad that might happen? That if I just get it checked, what might I avert if I get something checked?
It would just make it that much harder when you are ready to adjust to the hearing aids. So if you think of your brain as a muscle, if you're not giving it the signal, exercising it, you're going to lose what it's capable of doing. So, if I sit here and I do my biceps, but then I wait 10 years to do another bicep, I'm pretty sure this muscle isn't going to be as toned and big as it is now. The brain needs to be stimulated to maximize your quality of life. So so it's not so hard, not so difficult. And you're not going to reject that hearing aid. I mean, we do get 80 to 90-year-olds still. That's the first age of when they get their hearing aids. And it's a lot of counseling, and it's a lot of, you're going to have to be patient with yourself. Right. Because the brain hasn't heard any of this stuff. It's got to reorganize it. It's got to learn what it is and pay attention to it or ignore it.
So since we're talking about the age thing and dementia and hearing loss, so tell me about the connection between hearing loss and dementia, and what treating hearing loss does to reduce your risk.
So hearing loss does not cause dementia.
Okay.
If you are at risk for dementia, it runs in your family.
Yeah.
And you don't treat your hearing loss, again, the brain's a muscle. If it's not getting that stimulation, it may increase that onset of the dementia.
Okay. So if you feel like you've got dementia in your family, you might want to get tested earlier. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then another thing as we think about if you have dementia, I mean, I have someone in my family, that does run in my family. If you have dementia and you can't hear, does that cause more of a rapid decline?
That's what research is showing.
Yeah, because you can't hear anything.
You're not stimulating the brain.
More and more isolated, all of those things, because you just can't hear conversations. Mm-hmm. So if someone is in the middle, or maybe they've been diagnosed early on, can they still get hearing aids and get tested? Will that help? Or?
Yeah, I recommend it.
Okay.
Because you're stimulating the brain and it creating, you're maximizing that quality of life long term when you catch it early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So why do you think, a lot of primary care physicians, they don't screen for this? Like, I just went into a primary care visit about 6 months ago, and it was like, have you had your mammogram? Have you had your colonoscopy? They did not ask me about hearing whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Or they didn't. Sometimes they'll ask you about vision, but usually they assume you're going to get your eyes checked. Mm-hmm. Why don't they ask you about your ears?
I know. I think over the years our industry hasn't made it important. Okay. And I think as time goes on, how long did you spend in your primary care appointment? Honestly.
Well, I don't know, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
20 minutes maybe?
Not very long.
Yeah.
So we're not thinking about those things because the healthcare industry has changed.
And if you present healthy enough, they're going to tackle whatever the worst thing that you bring into them is and send you on your way. Makes me wonder
if they actually do a memory test on some patients, in that older category. Are they taking the time to do that? I don't know.
Not to my knowledge.
Or a screening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would doubt, unless you bring it up.
Yeah. Well, look at children. They get screened up through elementary school. And then after elementary school, nobody's screening them.
Right. And that's sort of how we think about, like, whether it's vision or hearing. It's sort of like ancillary to regular primary care. And so unless you're like, hey, I can't see, or I have to squint all the time, or my spouse is telling me I need to get my ears checked, it's just not on many people's radar, I feel like.
Yeah, or I guess if the physician's asking you a question, you say what, then it might trigger them to ask you, have you gotten your hearing checked lately?
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about where you get your, the hearing aids that you've tested, and that you have a channel where you've tested a few different models and given reviews. You can get hearing aids at Costco, and you can get them on Amazon now. So tell me, how is that different than what happens here at your clinic?
So we only deal with the medical grade hearing aids, and on our website, you'll find all the manufacturers. They've been around for decades and decades. They're the only ones that we consider prescriptive hearing aids. Okay. The ones that you're going to find online or at Costco, I mean, if you find an actual medical grade product, on eBay or something, somebody might be selling their old hearing aid. I don't know. I mean, I don't recommend it.
Sure.
But the Costco ones are private labeled through Costco, and they have their own separate technology. So you're kind of buying this very basic type hearing aid that is programmable, but a lot of times we can't program them because it forces you to go back to some of those places like Costco where they adjust them. So we don't really have access to that computer chip, even if we wanted to.
Okay, so help me understand, because I don't know the necessarily difference between a medical grade and a Costco. So, like, if you break your foot and they give you a cast, it's molded to your foot, right? Mm-hmm. But you could go to Amazon and get a boot and wear a boot around. Is it similar to that?
It's similar. Yeah. I mean, you're basically, if you go online, you're treating yourself. Right? Okay. So you're going to figure out how to adjust these. They're not even really hearing aids. If you're finding something that makes no sense, like Ergo, or, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them out there. But they're basically amplifiers. They're just amplifying everything. They're not dialing in that prescription at all the frequencies where your loss is, because you don't need as much volume or prescription here as maybe you do here. Okay. So that's where the difference comes in, and then how it's processing that signal so your brain can interpret it and separate it out.
Got it. So it's just like putting a speaker into
You're basically
your
just
ear.
putting a speaker in your ear. And if you're not careful, you can cause more problems.
With what you can already hear, it's amplifying that too.
Yeah.
So
Yep. But most patients that are buying them over the counter, they end up in somebody's office anyways because they know it's not working.
are they custom like fit to your ear too? Because we have different sized ears and different. So,
Yeah. So there's a lot of options. You just got to find the right provider that's going to
Okay.
allow you to have the options. Explain to me my audiogram. Tell me what my options are. Can I have an in the ear one? Do I have to go over the ear? I love it when patients ask me those questions because I do find that, some providers aren't giving options. If you're going to invest in your hearing, I want you to know what all your options are, the pros and cons.
So is that why, I often hear, because we have a lot of older adults in our lives now that are like, God, they're so expensive. I don't know if I can afford to get a hearing aid. What happens? Like, is that something you hear often?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We hear it often. And I think over the years, the perception that hearing aids are expensive and they don't work,
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors that go into that. Are you going to a provider that does best practice? Are they doing speech mapping? Are they doing all the things that you're supposed to do to make sure that hearing aid is dialed into your prescription? If they're programming the hearing aid and saying, Melissa, how does that sound? That comfortable? And send you out the door, that's not a way to program a hearing aid.
Okay. What is speech mapping?
Speech mapping is real ear measurements. It's the same thing. We stick a microphone down in your ear with the hearing aid, and
Okay.
we put your hearing test in this machine, and we're watching what that hearing aid is doing in real time. So we know if this frequency is getting too much volume or if it's not. And we're running our soft speech because if patients aren't able to pick up that softer speech, that hearing aid, we're trying to get that hearing aid to maximize what it's supposed to do to bring you back that natural hearing that you've been missing all these years. So it's basically evidence-based practice. So are you going to recommend something and then not back it up with research that you've done it right correctly? If just like the physical or the OT that was just in here, I cut my tendon, the doctor fixes it, but I've got a baseline of where my range of motion was and where it needs to be.
Right.
We're measuring our evidence-based practice, so that's huge.
Let's talk a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about dementia. We've talked about like where people get their hearing aids. I followed some because I'm at the age I'm at. There's a lot of now new influencers in the perimenopause, menopause space.
Yes.
And they've talked about research that menopause can trigger hearing decline.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, is that real? Is this new information? This is new to me.
It's
So I'm
probably
curious.
silent. We just never talked about it.
Okay.
Perimenopause, menopause. It boils down to estrogen levels.
Okay.
So when women's estrogen levels fall, estrogen tends to be almost a protector of our hair cells inside of our inner ear. And when those change, then we don't have that protection anymore from age-related just different changes in our body.
Sure.
And, I kind of looking at the research again, thinking, okay, so if we need to be mindful of our estrogen levels, then what does HRT do? Well, if you do the research on HRT, it makes it worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what is the recommendation for women? It boils down to lifestyle. Living a healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, exercise, taking care of ourselves. I mean, I know, but it really does make a big difference.
Okay.
To try to prevent some of that age-related loss.
So if I'm starting to notice some hearing issues and I take estrogen, it can make it worse?
Yeah, so I would definitely consult before you start taking some of that stuff.
Consult with an audiologist?
No,
or
consult with your primary care or
Okay.
whoever your functional health provider or whoever
Man,
your
primary care doesn't know anything about estrogen, it feels like. They just seem very confused.
yeah, probably functional medicine, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because I don't know that I heard that either. So definitely probably consult with your functional medicine or primary care provider, but then also get your ears checked as well. 'Cause you might
get a
need
baseline
both.
at least.
Okay, good to know. So if a 48-year-old woman is listening to this right now and has noticed that her hearing is off, what would you recommend that she do?
Just call, make an appointment, and just get a baseline test and just see where it's at.
Okay. So I have a few myth busters.
Okay.
Or maybe not myth busters. I'm going to read a few statements and you can tell me what you think about these. If I had real hearing loss, I would know it.
Not necessarily.
So tell me why that's not true.
Because it happens so gradually. Typical age-related, noise-related loss is a gradual process. So your body almost adapts to it.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of make the statement. Other people might tell you first, but you're not hearing before you might notice.
Okay. Now, another one, hearing aids are mostly for old people. I hate the word old people now,
I
because
know.
now that I'm hitting a certain age, I'm like, ooh, am I, when do I hit that category?
I know. It's a stigma that's been there forever. I think a lot of it is what hearing aids used to look like and what they look like now. I mean, if you haven't seen a hearing aid in a while, 10 years, they've definitely come a long ways. They look so different. They can become almost invisible. You don't even notice them.
Do you have people in your 50s that wear hearing aids?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them?
hmm I even got guys in my 20s and 30s that come here. I mean,
Really?
yeah, they've got acoustic blast, or they were construction workers and they know that their hearing's crap and they want to fix it.
So if you're in one of those noisy jobs, I'm going to digress for a second here, and they give you those like little earplugs you get at the gas station, or whatever. Do those help at all?
If you're in properly, they can help.
Okay. So is there anything else we should be doing if we're in noisy environments, construction or whatever that might look like?
Is just kind of know what your OSHA noise levels are. I mean, if you know that noise is 85 decibels or 85 to 90, you can only be in that noise, 8 hours, 4 hours. It just depends. I mean, just kind of know what you're surrounding yourself by and how long you typically should be in that noise.
Okay. Do you make your kids wear headphones and stuff when they go to places? Do they just roll their eyes?
No, they like them.
Okay, make them cool as stickers or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know a person near to me who's done this. I can buy a hearing aid at Costco and it works just fine. What would you say to them?
It depends on the degree of loss. I mean, if they're just kind of in the beginning stages of loss, it might just be enough. Costco's going to program the hearing aid based on your perception. So your perception might be, oh yeah, this helps. But over time, within a year, most patients will tell you it just don't notice it anymore.
Okay. So that's where a real audiologist would be able to dial it in and make sure you just have what you need and you're
not getting too much, or you're getting enough.
So the words that you mentioned that I wasn't familiar with, you said sound mapping and then audiogram.
The audiogram is your hearing test.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Got it.
The speech mapping is that real measurement where you're fitting the hearing aid, you're dialing in the prescription.
Dialing it in. Okay, I like that.
Just kind of like a show, yep.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Tinnitus or tinnitus means your hearing is going or gone.
No, tinnitus just means it might be a symptom of noise exposure, or
Okay.
it could be a symptom of hearing loss. So
Okay.
if you've been around a lot of noises lately and you're noticing it, it might be time to back off and putting yourself in that noise. If you haven't been around the noise and you're at that you've got a noise history, you're over 50 and you're starting to notice it, then it could be a sign of hearing loss.
Okay.
Or it could be a sign of plugged wax to your ears. I mean, there's all different reasons
Sure.
why you have it.
If my hearing loss isn't bothering me, I don't need to do anything about it.
Do you live alone?
Fair. Very fair. All right. Hearing aids will make everything too loud.
Well, did you get it over the counter? Are you trying to fix it yourself? Are you trying to cut some corners because you don't want to spend the money, or you don't like the idea of the way it looks? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might experience something like that. But if you go to a provider that's doing best practice and knows what they're doing, you're not going to experience that stuff. And if they clearly give you the expectation. That's the other thing. I think we're all we hear these things all the time, but I think the society has given us this expectation of supposed to be like glasses. The second I put them on, it should be perfect.
Right.
It's a process. It can take at minimum 2 weeks for people to adapt. I've seen it, and people are really fighting it, almost a year before they adapt.
Oh, wow.
There's a big range of adapting and just having those expectations and just getting all the information and know what you're getting yourself into.
So why is the adaptation process so difficult? Because you get glasses, and that's also kind of a brain interpretation, but those work right away. Like, what is it about hearing?
I think it's just are you ready for it? You're not ready for it. You're doing it because your spouse telling you to do it.
Okay.
Did you wait too long? Are you 78 years old now and you waited too long? I mean, there's so many factors that affect how long it takes.
Okay.
Degree of loss, if it's really bad and you waited, for sure.
So if you've waited a really long time, let's say you're 80, and you should have had them 20 years ago, what happens in their brains or that makes that struggle so hard? Are they just not, it's like they can't, it's too loud or
The
too...
brain interprets it as noise. It
Okay.
doesn't know what that sound is, but the more you expose yourself to that sound, the brain remembers it.
Okay. So
And
it's
it
just wearing it.
compartmentalizes it, and oh, that's the water dripping. Ignore that. Oh, that's the conversation. It's doable. I mean, it's doable to be a successful hearing aid user even at that point, as long as you know the expectations and you know that this is going to be a process.
Sure. That makes sense. So if anyone's listening to this and they haven't gotten their hearing checked and they're maybe thinking that they should, what does that first appointment look like? What can they expect if they were to call and make an appointment?
So they'll just, when they call, make the appointment, we'll just kind of ask you, like, what are the things that you're experiencing? Now, do you have ringing in your ears? Somebody telling you can't hear, or you can't hear? And then when they come in and we go through their whole health history, I mean, we catch things that maybe primary care doesn't catch. You know, we're asking you about ear infections, surgeries. Have you had a stroke? Have you had a heart attack? I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why hearing loss was caused, not just noise and age and medications.
Sure. So if you're in your car and you've got like a really nice sound system, but you have to turn it up like almost to 75 to 80% to get like really good. Do you feel like that's a point where you should get your ears checked?
Well, how long are you going to sit in the car and listen to that?
Along like 6 years? Just saying,
Well, yeah.
for a friend.
You can download and you can download a noise meter.
Okay.
You know, Starkey, one of our manufacturers, they've got an accurate one, and you can watch that decibel level.
Yeah, and
know,
say, okay,
yeah.
this is maybe...
Or if your kids are wearing personal earbuds, AirPods, if you can hear it, it's too loud. If you're out here and they're using it,
Oh, yeah.
it's too loud. That's kind of the rule.
So that's a good question for the teenagers and the kids with the AirPods. Is there something that we should be aware of or thinking about as our kids are wearing those everywhere?
Yeah, you can go into the phone and do the self-limiter.
Okay.
Especially in Apple products where it will tell, hey, you need to turn it down. It'll tell them. Or you can actually limit the volume so they can't go higher.
Right.
But, I mean, the biggest rule of thumb is if you can hear it, it's too loud.
Yeah. I'll have to have some conversations when I get home.
Well, and if they're wearing them all the time, then we end up cleaning out a lot of earwax.
That's true. And they get disgusting. So what's the one thing that you want someone to walk away from this episode knowing?
The hearing aids, I don't want it to be a stigma. It shouldn't be a process that you avoid. I mean, it is something that definitely improved your quality of life. I mean, if I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on hearing aid, would I rather go spend it on a trip? Of course I would. But it boils down to your quality of life. And you really have to think about that. We're only on Earth for a short period of time. And you want to be able to enjoy your family, your friends, your grandkids. I mean, you don't want to just go into isolation because you don't like the idea of a hearing aid. It makes me look old. I think over the years, we've gotten a little bit better at getting rid of that stigma.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So how can people find you? Where do they get a hold of you?
Well, we're kind of all over. You can find us on TikTok. We have a lot of ear cleanings if you enjoy that. We're on Facebook. We also have our own website.
Okay.
YouTube. I mean, we get comments all the time, and we're always try to answer that. Otherwise, just call our office.
Okay. And they can book an appointment on your website or just by calling.
Well, we don't have appointments on our website, but yes,
Okay.
just call the office or
Okay.
send an email through the website, and we can email and get you scheduled too.
And we'll make sure to put a link to Sioux Falls Audiology Associates in the show notes. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit the description and you can click on the link there. And we'll also make sure to include the phone number as well to Audiology Associates. So thank you so much. This was a great episode. Learned a lot about, how your hearing can affect and how that interacts with different, disease states or age. And all kinds of good things. And I'll have to check my kids' earbuds when I get home and put the limiter on the iPhones. I didn't know that was a thing, so it's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thanks.
Mandy. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, that's our show. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this, if you thought, hey, my sister needs to hear this, or I should send this to my mom, or my buddy would get a lot out of this, please share it with them. Just hit the share button and send it their way. You never know what one conversation, one episode, or one piece of information can do for someone who's been looking for answers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It takes 2 seconds, it's free, and it means you won't miss an episode. We've got incredible stuff coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. And if you're a health or wellness provider and you want to be on the show, we'd love to hear from you. There's a link in the show notes to get in touch. We're always looking for people doing interesting work who want to share what they know. And one last thing, I get asked all the time about the products and brands I actually use. So I put together a list of sponsors and favorite products that have worked for me and my family. If you're curious, that link is in the show notes too. Thank you for being here. And I really mean that. I'm Melissa Goodwin. The line is open. See you next time.